Was 16 the first time you got behind the wheel of a truck?
No, sir.
First time you were legally behind a truck. So how did you, make that transition from pulling houses to an office job? I would imagine in your driving days you've seen a lot. It's one of the craziest things you've seen.
Whew.
Hello and welcome to the Bennett Podcast. I'm Jason Brady, the Executive Director of Marketing and Communications here at Bennett. Today I have Roy Perry with Bennett Truck Transport. We're going to spend the next few minutes talking about his career and his past experiences and really just get an insight of what it takes to be an executive here at Bennett and talk a lot about his history as a driver. So with that, let's toss it over to Roy. Roy, let's start off this morning and talk about your history and kind of where you started and where you are now.
Well, let's go back and start the beginning, okay? When I got back then it was called a chauffeur's license, okay? I was grandfathered in because I drove cattle truck for a farmer when I was 16 in West Virginia. Extra $5 on my application, I got what they called a chauffeur's license, which grandfathered in now to the CDL.
So let me ask you this. Was 16 the first time you got behind the wheel of a truck?
No, sir.
First time you were legally behind a truck?
Just so everybody knows, my CB handle is third gear, okay? And I'll tell you where it come from. I was 10, 11 years old. We had a log truck. Whatever, my father would say, go get the log truck, and before I got from here to you, they would say, no, Roy, don't you take that truck out third gear. I was 10, 11 years old, and I've just been in it ever since. I got in, like I said, I was a foreman at the mobile home factory in Texas. I wanted to go back to get driving. I got a job for Bennett Mobile Home Transport, and actually my father worked there. So I had a mentor with my first house coming out the gate. Never pulled one in my life, but it was a long 2 days for me, I promise you. And we just progressed up to the different companies, Mobile home companies used to be plentiful. Now there's like 3, okay? There was 6 in one little town when I was starting. But like I say, it's just progressed up from there. I mean, it's just... Everybody says, have you ever quit pulling houses? Yes, I have. I'm never pulling another house in my life. I went to hauling gas. I've done about 2 months in. Nah, this ain't me. I'm back to hauling houses, and I just could never get away from it.
So how many houses do you think you've pulled over the years?
Ooh. I don't know. I'd say probably 4,000, 5,000, because I was always in between a truck and an office.
So I'm going to ask you a tough question here, okay, because not all of our leadership has the experience that you have, right? A lot of them may have worked within the trucking industry, but not all of them have been drivers. Mm-hmm. And when you hear drivers gripe, well, they just don't understand what we do every day, what advice would you give to another executive that maybe doesn't have the experience you have?
Let's back up just a little bit. What makes us so unique, most of our management team in the field and in our offices are truck drivers, was truck drivers, still are truck drivers, okay? So everybody is at a level playing field out in the field and here also. If they go into the regional manager in Pennsylvania, he's a truck driver. He can relate to them, and I think that's a big part of how we've made it to where we're at today.
So as you look at your team, those that are interacting with the drivers on a daily basis, whether it's dispatch, whether it's, you name it, right? When your drivers are talking to your team, what advice do you give your team? Again, because I know a lot of leadership are former drivers, and I know some folks in the office are former drivers or have been around the industry for a long time. I think that's one cool thing about our industry, in fact, is you talk to people, it's, well, my mom, used to work for Bennett, or my dad was a driver, and that's why I got in the industry. Sure. So I think we're fortunate in that regard. But we do have, especially now where we've seen a lot of turnover, we've seen a lot of people that are starting to retire from Bennett. We're going to year 51. What advice do you give your team so that you can help them relate to what the driver experiences day to day?
Or the team has got to remember, without a driver, they don't have a team. okay?
That's right.
So they got to work with their drivers for whether it be time off or just having a bad day. You know, you just got to talk them through it and let them vent. It's easy.
You ever wish that you come into work one day and you're like, man, I would rather be out on the road driving all day than having to do what I'm doing today?
Yes, some days I do. Yeah. Yes, I would just soon be out there with the truck and turn the radio off, and I'm on my own world, you know. But yeah, some days I honestly say I do.
In the 2 years that I've been here, it has opened my eyes to all of the things that these drivers are responsible for, which I think, you know, I never had a stereotype, the typical stereotype of a driver, you know, that they were this way or that way. Never did. I can't say I appreciated them the way that I appreciate them now, but talk to me a little bit about that. What are some stereotypes that you hear about drivers, and tell me what a typical driver really is all about?
Usually the stereotypes of the drivers, you hear a lot, well, you just drive a truck. That's not hard. Let me tell you something. That's a whole different world out there. It's just more of a mental game than it is a physical game, because you got so many people you got to watch, take care of. You know, it's like I say, it's just a mental game to me for the drivers. It's tough. Most of the drivers is family men. They got good family. They got families to take care of. They're busy, take care of their home life, but they got to be gone to do it. And that's tough. I don't care who you are. It's tough to be gone, missing the ball games, missing the senior prom or whatever, because you got to make a living.
And I think a lot of people, a lot of the driving public that it's out there might appreciate the fact that, you know, they're getting these goods from point A to point B, but miss the fact that in doing that for them, like you said, they're missing so much that's going on at home. And I know at Bennett, you know, we really work with the drivers to provide that flexibility. You know, the fact that most of our drivers are owner-operators gives them that flexibility because they're basically running their own company, and we're helping support that, and they're helping us support our business. But there is a lot that they miss.
There is a lot, and I just wish the general public, I don't care what it is, whether it's a new house going down the road or a carton of milk. Just remember, a truck driver touched it first. Okay? They touched it first, so they just need to think about where it come from.
Right. I mean, and on the case of Bennett Truck Transport, the roofs over a lot of their heads might have been touched by you guys too.
We delivered a little over 11,000 houses last year.
Yeah. I mean, that's pretty incredible. Mm-hmm. You know, and then we look at a time like this where, you know, we're facing a natural disaster with the hurricane that came through. I know that, you know, we do a lot for the government as far as moving temporary housing and things like that in. You know, I know in the past that Bennett has, you know, provided trucks to bring in goods where we normally wouldn't, you know, do those types of things. So it goes beyond just the day-to-day with us.
Yes, it does. I mean, for example, Hurricane Katrina, I mean, we went above and beyond, not asking for any pats on the back, but we moved stuff for people because they needed it.
So looking back when you were driving, you said that was in the 80s, you know, I don't have the statistics, but you can, out on the road, see how much more traffic these guys are having to deal with on a day-to-day. You said it's a mental game.
It is a mental game because the drivers is up against technology. And I say that, you know, everybody's on their cell phone. You know, everybody's got their stereo going wide open. All that stuff didn't used to be a factor that it is today. So you just got so many distractions out there they got to deal with.
I talked to one of our drivers. This was been a while ago. He was pushing 3 million miles. Mm-hmm. So spent a lot of time in the truck, a lot of time on the road, seen a lot. And that's one of the things that he said. It's, you know, we're up against the technology, not necessarily the technology that's in place to help drivers in, you know, in the cab, but the technology that other people are using that just distracts, you know, their driving, distracts, you know, the flow of traffic, all of those types of things. And, you know, his one big thing when I asked him was it's volume of traffic and the fact that people aren't paying attention.
Not paying attention. I mean, just to the simple fact that if you watch in the mornings coming to work, How many people you see with a cup of coffee and a McDonald's sandwich in their hand trying to drive, coming to work? That didn't used to be that way because there wasn't that many fast food restaurants to deal with.
That's right.
Yeah.
Everybody got the home cooked meal.
Yep, everybody cooked it at the house before they left. Yes, sir.
So let's shift gears a little bit. I would imagine in your driving days you've seen a lot. Mm-hmm. It's one of the craziest things you've seen that you can talk about.
Well, that's a wide open subject. I mean, from the flyer children, for lack of better words, camped out everywhere to just disasters. I mean, just like happened in South Georgia. I mean, when you drive into something that you don't realize what you're going to, and it just changes your whole world. I mean, it's actually scary. Some of the stuff you see out on the road, we can't talk about it because
right.
Yeah.
Right. Favorite place to go when you were hauling loads and you knew that, okay, I got this trip coming up. I'm either going to be going to this town or going through this town. What was your favorite city and then favorite part of the country?
Well, the favorite city I always liked to pull to was usually Albuquerque, New Mexico. I loved Albuquerque.
Why's that?
It's just wide open territory. It's just desolate, beautiful land. Now, favorite places to go, I'm going to be a little selfish. I'm originally from West Virginia, so do I need to say anything else? We're going back up the East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back home.
Going back home.
Yeah, get that home-cooked meal.
Yep.
So you talked about that, talking about home. Your family, you come from a family of drivers. Mm-hmm. What was some advice that someone in your family, maybe it was your dad, uncle, someone, gave you as you were moving into the driver's seat, and they were like, if you do nothing else, I need you to listen to this. What was that?
Well, just to add a little catch to it, my dad's 84 and he's still driving today. He's still pulling houses for us today. But his advice always was, be prideful in what you do. Doesn't matter whether you're hauling milk or a mobile home. There's pride in what you do. You're delivering something to somebody. And that's always stuck with me for some reason.
So add to that, right? Now you're in the position you're in. We see a lot of new drivers coming into the workforce. I'm on a lot of social media groups, and one of the things that I see that I think is really good is a lot of drivers that have been in the workforce, been in the industry for a long time, giving advice to younger drivers, but also in the same regard, being critical of younger drivers. What advice would you give in addition to being proud? Because I love that. I think that's fantastic. I think everybody needs to be proud of what they do no matter what. And you look at the trucking industry and what we talked about earlier, the fact that milk's in the refrigerator because of drivers. Mm-hmm. The roof over our head is because of a driver. If none of that would be possible if we didn't have the trucking industry. So what advice would you give to a young driver?
The young generation coming in, the best advice I can think that I could give them is to accept what people is telling them as a good thing, not being criticized. The younger generation of drivers, if you tell them that's not the way I would do it, can I help you? They get offended. They don't need to do that. They're just trying to share knowledge is all they're doing. And I just wish they would just slow down and accept it. Listen.
Be open to feedback.
Yeah, be open to feedback. It's not all bad. For example, 5.5 million miles, the best we got track of him right now. He's been driving trucks 66 years. But he still has knowledge that he shares with me on a daily basis. Sometimes people think it doesn't make no sense. It will. Just slow down and listen.
So you talk about your dad, 66 years in the driver's seat. I think that's amazing. You mentioned 1994 is when you came to Bennett.
That's when I come to Bennett, yes, sir.
Best move, you said, is best move I've ever made.
Best move.
One of the things that drew me to Bennett, other than how Miss Taylor has created a culture here that, people toss around in a lot of different industries, a lot of different companies, family-owned, right? First place that I've ever worked in my 30-plus years in the workforce that truly feels like a family when I'm away from my family. I think that's incredible, and I think that extends beyond just the home office to our terminals, to our drivers, and she's adamant about that, right, that we hire people that want to live that culture. Another piece of it is what we do for our veterans? You know, from the veterans that are in the driver's seat to the ones that we, you know, honor through Wreaths Across America and things like that. What does having veterans in our workforce mean to you, and how do we benefit from that?
I think the veterans that we have, and I wish we had more of them, like I said, we can always go back to the same thing. It's the pride. They have pride coming in. They have pride with the family. I mean, for Miss Taylor, for example, if you don't see her for 2 weeks and I meet her in the hallway, I'm probably going to get a hug before I get asked what I'm doing. You know, but that's just the family life we live around here, and she does it for everybody.
Couple more serious questions, and we're going to get to some fun ones.
Okay.
Yeah, like this is, I'm looking forward to these because, yeah. So I was thinking we were going to go there with the craziest thing you saw on the road, and I saw your eyes light up, but then you started thinking about it, and we stayed away from that. Again, if I'm out there on these Facebook groups and just looking at the conversation, I rarely, if ever, chime in. I want to learn. I want to hear what these guys are, you know, what their challenges are, the good things, the bad things, because I feel like that, you know, by knowing what they're talking about and what's going on with them and the challenges that they're facing, you know, it can help my team, you know, help them through our marketing efforts and communication efforts, because it connects with them a little bit more. One of the things that I hear a lot of, and there seems to be a division, those that want to, you know, do whatever it takes to make a living, and those that are a little bit more, they choose a little bit more of, well, I'm not going to take this load because it's not paying what it should pay, you know, versus, you know, I'm going to take any load because I've got to put food on the table. I know that's a challenge, and I know, you know, it ebbs and flows, and right now I think we're in a challenging time. Again, what would some advice as a former driver be to you about how to pick and choose what loads you should take, which ones you should pass over, and what was your approach?
My approach has always been, and you call in for dispatch, ask if you're loaded tomorrow. When they say yes, thank them and hang up. It doesn't matter where you're going. It doesn't matter what you're pulling. Some freight, as in any trucking industry, is a little off because of the area. Okay, so I'm going to use a number of $500. You can make $500 a day or not. Now, that's a choice you need to make, but that's where it really stands. Just take what we get, because we don't build anything. We just move them. We don't ever know where they're going until we get the call.
All right, so we talked about funniest thing you've seen on the road. Okay,
how about the Oscar Mayer mobile? I saw it in the world's largest popcorn machine. My life was complete.
There you go. All right, so what's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you while you were out on the road?
I guess in our industry, the manufactured housing industry, you know, it's just, you're always getting pranks pulled on you by your fellow drivers, okay? One particular time, we was at a truck stop, and I don't know where they come up with this joker at, but they had a dummy of a girl sitting in the passenger seat of my truck. You know,
right.
Yeah, trying to convince me they're taking pictures of it. You know, I don't know, but you know, but yeah, just crazy, just pranks.
Yeah,
mainly. Yeah.
All right. So now, kind of look at your time out of the driver's seat. Let me ask you this: so, what is one thing that's happened to you in your current role or one of your roles over the last 10 years where you've been surprised or something unexpected's happened that you've just not experienced before?
Well, let's see. It's been about 10 years ago, I would say. The surprise attack when you're standing on your front porch on a Friday afternoon and you get a phone call from Danny Lowry and says, "Hey, man, what are you doing tomorrow?" Needless did I not know, I was going to be throwing cinder blocks in New York for the next 9 weeks when they flooded the Susquehanna River. I stayed up for 9 weeks throwing cinder blocks, but that's what we did. I mean, they needed done.
Couple more questions for you. Favorite truck stop meal? You're out on the road, and you know you're going by a restaurant or a stop. What you going to order?
Open-faced roast beef sandwich.
All right, where do you get that at?
Used to be able to get the best one I knew of in Rip Griffin's in Snyder, Texas.
Okay.
That was the best one on the road.
Is it still open?
No.
All right.
That's the problem. There's not a whole lot of restaurants opening truck stops anymore. It's all fast food.
Yeah. We talked a lot about people being distracted, with their phones and these days. Outside of that, what's your biggest pet peeve about as a driver? If you're behind the wheel and you see something, what's your biggest pet peeve?
On the road, well, this is probably going to stir it up, but riding around with the air seat flat on the floor, that just aggravates me to no end.
Yeah.
Because you lose visibility. I mean, that's just me. I mean, I know I'm going to get a lot of feedback on this one, but I'm ready.
Yeah, we did a social media post on that.
And that still hasn't changed.
It was controversial to say the least. So, all right. And then let's say you could go back to how old were you when you first got behind the wheel of a truck?
Well, before I got my license or after. I was hauling logs in West Virginia when I was 15.
All right, so let's say when you were legally behind the wheel.
18.
Okay, so at 18 years old,
Yep.
What advice would you give your 18-year-old self today?
I would just have to repeat my experience, pay attention to your surroundings and the people that's with you, because they got all the knowledge. They got the knowledge you need to survive, whether it's the driving part or the management part. Either one, take the advice from the old folks. We didn't get old for nothing,
Right. You were fortunate, right?
I was very fortunate.
You had mentors and people that you could look up to in your family that were doing it, which I would guess probably made it easier and sometimes probably made it a little more difficult.
Yeah.
For those that are, really considering doing this, how do they find those folks now? How do they find those folks that have the knowledge? Because in my opinion, right, the ones that are wanting to seek that knowledge and have an avenue to find that knowledge are the type of drivers we want out on the road, type of drivers we probably want here at Bennett. How do they find it?
In today's world, you have to go through a school to get a CDL now. You have to go through the entire class, entire school. I would look like for our young generation to, if they've got an uncle that drives truck for Bennett or something, have them sponsor them. After they get out of school, we can work with them a little bit because we can't teach people how to drive a truck, but we can teach people how to do what we do. Okay, that's where the split in the sand is. So except if you got an uncle and you're interested, let's talk, man, because we need young people because our average driver right now, I think, is 56 years old in our division.
Yeah.
So that's scary. And 440 some trucks, there's a lot of us out there that's looking at the way out.
Yeah. So if you're looking ahead 5 years down the road, one, where are you going to be? And two, where do you think the industry's going to be?
That's a loaded question. I'm going to be here unless somebody tells me different. I'm pretty sure because I'm not a homebody. I can't sit that much at home. But the industry in 5 years with all the EV vehicles and everything, I don't really know. It's going to be interesting, to say the least. I mean, real interesting.
And I know you get that in your current job because you're so closely tied to it and you're the type of person that, stays in the trenches. And I think that's why, people look up to you and consider you a great leader because you're not afraid to roll up your sleeves. But when did you decide that, because you said, I went from hauling houses and I'm not going to do that again to, hauling gas, and then you kept coming back.
Right back, yes.
So how did you, make that transition from pulling houses to an office job?
Danny Lowry caught me off guard, let's put it that way. And he told me he needed some people down here to get things done and for me to quit doing them and help get them done. So, and that's just started moving up from there.
Okay.
I mean, that's the best I can tell you. I mean, it's just been a roller coaster because we never know. I mean, today, I don't know what I'm going to do when I walk out this door. I may be going somewhere, pick up a truck, and I will.
Anything else you want to add?
No, I'm just here for your entertainment today, buddy.
Well, I appreciate the time. Yeah. I think this was great, and one of the biggest reasons that we wanted to start doing this is we want to get this type of information. We've got so many people like yourself here that have so much knowledge of what the industry used to be about, what it's about, seen that change. again, can help people navigate, their career, whether they're 10 years into it, 15 years into it, or just thinking about getting into it. And so to know that, we're, might be helping somebody. But I think more than anything, just recognizing what we started off this conversation about was, I have my job, you have your job, because we have drivers out on the road that are doing what they do every day. And I can't, think all of them, but we can sure try.
Yes.
And, I think that's one great thing about Bennett is we've got good people here that recognize what we just said, right? That we're here because they're out there. And as long as they keep doing what they're doing, we'll be lucky enough to do what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
So, Roy, appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right.
Yes, sir.
All right.